Well, hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be talking with Joanne Kollman. She is an amazing artist from Portland, Oregon. She's very active in the community. Everybody knows Joanne. She's an educator. She spends time volunteering and helping others, explore art. And she's also part of the Seventh Generation Project. And we are very lucky indeed that she is with us tonight. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you, John, for the intro. And it's been a pleasure working on all of your projects.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you've done some of the most, well, actually, everything you do is pretty amazing, but I really love your portrait work. I mean, the one that you did of Kate Brown, our governor Kate Brown, is I thought was just extraordinary, and I've always really loved your abilities and the skill that you bring to what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, and COVID has brought us painting from Zoom meeting. So
yeah. So tell me, when you started painting, what are your first thoughts?
Well, I guess to quote right off the bat, I've been listening to Sundays with David LaFell, and they size and placement, to just get a feeling of the space and what's going on the canvas with, thin washes, because, or what do I want to say? Not distinct mark making right off the bat, because
Sure.
you got to get a feel for how big and what's going on there. So when I teach, no pencils on the canvas.
Interesting. So you're not very clear what the end product is going to be like, and the beginning of your painting leaves room for exploring. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think I have an idea of, when I'm especially a portrait, and especially working from life, you've whether if it's someone posing or a landscape, you've got that window of how long the person's going to sit, or how long that light's only going to stay the same for a couple of hours. So you've got a margin of time there to figure out what, where, how is going on there. So yeah, I think it's someone I think years ago, 100 starts, you got to just keep starting paintings. And I think for me, that became one of my strong points, of just getting the brushwork and a feeling of what was going on the canvas.
Sure.
And
that's a very interesting idea. 100 starts. Was that something that, was that something that was out there for a while, where people?
Yeah, I heard it and then you hear that I think somebody else's teachings were, the 10,000 hours you put in, and
yeah.
when you first start painting, you think, and now a lot of us could be buried in all the paintings we've done. So
No
storage
kidding.
and
I've this idea of 100 starts, I'm thinking of my paintings, and I do plein air, and people ask me about, well, how long does it take, that kind of thing, and I've always felt like I do about 80% of it on site, maybe 90, 95 if I'm lucky. And there's that other, 5 to 20%, but that 5 to 20% could take 10 times the amount of time that the original, painting took, and so does that relate? Does my story relate in some way to this idea of starting and finishing?
Yeah. And again, I've, like I said, I've been listening to Sundays with David LaFell, and I just like the philosophy behind, he's 90. I've also studied with Max Ginsburg, who's 90. These guys have been painting for a long time. And David's philosophy is to start with the finish in mind. So I used to, I guess early training or early just where I was at with painting, the paintings would always stay in the middle and, like all kind of a mid-range, as though you're supposed to put the darks and the lights in last. And David's philosophy is like, you got to get that highlight in right away. To see that value range right off the bat. And it's not like you keep those spots there, they're there. And who to quote other artists, I think it came from Helen Van Wyck. Somebody told me, make it, break it, and make it again. And that's really, it's a whole process of not getting too precious. So yeah, you got to be willing to destroy it and get it back again if you made it once. But I do like that fresh spontaneity of starts. Like even when I look at a lot of artist paintings, I'm more fond of the studies than I am of the final resolutions of things, because they seem to stiffen up. And I guess having come from a illustration and advertising background, my least favorite result is like a rendering of something. You want it to stay alive, and that's really hard to do.
What I think too, when you break it, you also bring up some other possibilities that maybe you didn't begin with.
Oh yeah. And I guess one of the most magical things is like putting too much paint on and you're like, ugh, like where is this going? And to just take the palette knife and do a couple swipes across. And this was another good tip from a friend, was like, don't, people get frenetic, I'll watch students be frenetic about, it's like they're not even connected to what they're doing and the brush strokes are going everywhere. And the same when you say you can scrape it off with a palette knife, I always say it's not, it's, a couple of swipes, and when you get that layer off, the ghost of what's there is often more interesting than what you painted in the first place. And then you can put back interesting passages without, having every edge defined.
I think part of that is having confidence as an artist. It's not that you do one thing and there's something perfect about it and you're never going to attain that again, but it's that as an artist, you can take something away, and if you choose to, you can bring it back or not. And I think one of the beautiful things is, even if you do choose to bring it back, it's never quite the same, and it's always probably more interesting.
Or not.
or not. But I think that you talk about like the ghost image. Didn't you just use that word, ghost or shadow or something? But that's always interesting, isn't it?
It is.
Because it's not complete but somehow the form and the energy is still there, or
Yeah, it's like the core structure is there, and then you can bring back out the light, I mean, because essentially, I mean, and I think that's my just in observational representational painting is passages of light, have a energy and a flow. And in fact, my still life, I most like to set florals up in front of the window. I've got flowers, I've got I think north light on that side and windows around here. So, everything poses something different. And I like the flowers in the window more than I do like lighting a still life, though I occasionally do that. So I guess that's kind of takes me to my plein air interest, is to be outside. And I like the flowers looking outside too, where the light's coming in and
so
natural light. So I mostly prefer natural light, but I, will, have to work on things in the evening periodically. And I kind of work on different things, maybe block in, but I think it's even with good studio lights, I think it's difficult to work on color.
So what, as you're doing a painting, as you're being creative, what kinds of things get your attention with light? I mean, what are you looking for to help you make an excellent work?
Well, strong light and contrast is good. And then, just the diffusion of light, where it diffuses and subtleties. And I think all of those things, as with color, is the poetry of painting. There's a push and a pull, and foreground, background, things can intermingle. I think the
Yeah.
mystery and the air space that you can create with paint.
So now you've got one of your still lifes, I think, right behind you on an easel.
Yeah, that's I take out paintings, like failed paintings during the winter. And that was one that the initial still life was setting south light coming in. And it was very high key, and I just had too many things in the painting. So I've got, so when I get a new array of flowers, I might have something that's similar, or in this case, I didn't have these were garden roses, kind of out of our kind of dilapidated rose bushes, but they're like sort of organic looking garden picks, not like prize roses. And so the character of them, so I still had the photograph, and I'll set up whatever I can again, like the glass and the fruit or whatever was there, or the reflection. So I was a little too literal with the surroundings, and there was a dark curtain. So I was thinking, oh, well, there's an L composition there, but it was just too heavy. And so I just painted out things. So I guess that's a big part of composition and decision making, is taking things out, and trying to stay with the bare essence of what's there.
And do you have can you articulate what bare essence means for you?
It means that you don't have to paint everything you see, and that oftentimes, the less is more theory. All of I think in this still life behind me, there was a plate and there was a curtain, and And then I took out the fruit. I just put the fruit back in. I was like, well, maybe it just needs to be petals. So I don't like spend hours like dealing with something like that. It's just sitting there, and I might, in between other stuff that I'm doing, I might just decide to pay more attention to a key, one of the roses where light's coming in. Like I, got down that spontaneous, energetic lay-in, and now I need to pay a little attention to the temperature changes and where the light actually falls on the petal. And, it might just be a stroke here or there. It's more like putting paint strokes on rather than mashing them into each other. So I try to maintain that, put it down and leave it there, and then put another one down.
Now, you spend, well, for years you've volunteered in the classroom and working with young people. Could you talk about why that's a good thing for us to do?
Well, I've had the opportunity to work with St. Andrew Nativity School, which is the only, I believe, tuition-free private school. It's a middle school, and it's based on economic need solely. And their success rate of high school grads, college grads is like in the 90%. So kids who may have been at high risk of not completing their education, and there's no like art program in the curriculum. So they call it after school enrichment, where musicians and theater people and artists come in for an hour. It's like an hour class once a week, and then some summer programs. So sometimes it's interesting that dynamics are hard to, corral them into doing things. And, we've gotten incredible group projects and community projects that have worked out really well in the past, kind of pre-COVID. And now oftentimes it's, sometimes you're really affecting maybe one or two kids who are, really have something, or some that don't have the confidence, and you see that, something magic happens. So yeah, I still like to do that. I think that especially as getting older, I remember people, like putting older people into older people homes where that's all they're around is older people. So I like the variety of exposing my craft and being exposed to what all ages have to bring to the table. So it makes it interesting.
Now, an important part of the Seventh Generation Project, of course, is equity between generations, and what we have to pass down. Can you talk a little bit about that? And is well, just can you talk a little bit about that?
About like passing down skill, or what?
Well, I'm thinking about how you are very much working with other generations,
Right.
so you are conscious of that, and just what what is our responsibility to other generations, I guess is my question.
I think to, create interest and awareness in what's going on in the world. And I guess as artists, we're very observational about what's going on around us. And one thing came to mind when I was, I think you remember when I was filling in at high school, and the art classes can be a dumping ground for like, oh, this is going to be an easy A, and but you've got to follow our curriculum. And what do you do when the kids are not doing the work? And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna this is going to affect their GPA, and I don't want to give them a D, but how can this guy get an A or even a C when they haven't done any of the work? So I emailed the parents, and I think contacted you, and we sent kids over to the gallery to have to look at and comment on social justice art pieces. So
that was great. And I remember there was one young man, and he may have had a little bit of an attitude when he came in, but I think he softened up quite a bit by the time he left.
Well, and you'll get the what is it? The administration, will get feedback from parents like, I don't understand why my son is failing art. And so I was happy to send out emails to say that I told them they could all get A's if they went to the gallery and wrote a couple lines on what they saw to fill in all the missing assignments. And your child has, 8 out of 14 assignments missing, So,
yeah, I know that is.
but yeah, it's and I guess that's there's just some, well, it's probably why I wouldn't work in some of those systems, and that times have changed and there's expectations. And of course, this was in private school, and people are paying tuition for an academic education, and they don't feel that art has a place there. And a lot of it is getting informed and following directions. And I think that, you're gonna change the oil in your car, or, wash your clothes. There's a process to do all of these things.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking with Joanne Kollman, and thank you for joining us. Do you have any last thing you would like to say?
Well, you had some other I think initial questions that I thought one of them you asked in your overview of what we had done for the second generation was like what that place, if there was any significance of place. And being a native Oregonian, well, Seaside was our place that we went, and Astoria when I was a kid, and then as a young adult, Cannon Beach. And I ended up choosing Arch Cape because a close friend who I had shared a studio, the Troy, who was down the hall in the Troy studio, lived right there, kind of like we could just walk to that little ledge where I overlooked that nice view of the rock there in Arch Cape. And so that's really key to a lot of what I do. It's the people and things and important places and significance. So the Paint to Save the Trees, right across from the Portland Art Museum, where that was like, I went to the Pacific, well, it wasn't called Pacific Northwest College of Art. That was my first art school experience, the museum art school, right outside of where you had the tables set up, and we painted. And I didn't hear the outcome of that, if that's going to become Cement World or.
No, it's not. We actually won.
Oh, that is so great.
Yeah,
That is,
yeah.
That
Yeah,
is so awesome. I told people, you know, we painted there on the hottest day of the year, and I didn't know how hot it was until I went to my car because we were sheltered by that canopy of trees. And
that's
as soon
right.
as you walked across the street, even by the historical society, to go to your car, there was just a waif of unbearable heat, you know, so that would have been a travesty to have had that happen. So,
Yeah, it sold itself as far as why the trees
wow.
were important, and it was, and I think that the project of the painting the trees, you know, it helped to it helped a whole neighborhood to get together, and it had a good result. So
That's awesome, John. You're a visionary of preservation and even moving forward to, you know, bring us together to, you know, and I think artists in the community are important. And that's one of the key things that you do is bring people together for, you know, a common good. And that's awesome. I'm
thank
uh,
you. Thank you very much.
privileged to have worked with you, and I hope to do more.
Good. Me too. We have projects, and and I always love how you elevate the work that we do. You come in, and what you do makes things better. Well, thank you for this interview,
Thank you, John.
and I look forward to further conversations.
All
Bye for
right.
now.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.